Full disclosure, prior to doing this video, I had never heard of Exalted Vales. As a matter of fact, I never even heard about the creators of Exalted Vales, TheInkPlot. But when they sent me an email a few days ago with some of their stuff and asking me if I could do a video on their new Kickstarter project launching today, I immediately took a look and I got to say, I'm pretty intrigued. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Trosk and today I want to talk about Exalted Vales Favorable Skies Mystic Supplement. Favorable Skies, an Exalted Vales regional supplement and DM tool for D&D 5e. If all of that sounds like gibberish to you, well, it sounded like gibberish to me as well a few days ago when I got the email and looked into this for the first time. And I say for the first time because I did not know about Exalted Vales, Guide to the Vales, or the Exalted Vales, the Favorable Skies book before this. This is completely new to me, and I don't want to spend too much time on the Kickstarter page itself, because as you can see, it isn't live yet. They're looking for 10,000 Canadian dollars, if I'm not mistaken, and there's zero pledged because it isn't live yet, and they're going live today. I have a PDF of Guide to the Vales because that book was kickstarted a while ago and it is out now. So you can buy it or you can get it for yourself as well, and you can get it through this Kickstarter that we're looking at right now. You can get it through this Kickstarter to get it with like the new book, The Favorable Skies. And Exalted Vales, basically, I haven't had the time to like fully dig into it the way that I would like to. Is a campaign setting with player options, everything you'd expect, magic items, player options, races, classes, feats, adventures. There's like adventures in here, plot hooks in here, enough to keep you playing for like, I don't know, your entire lifetime of playing 5th edition, right? So everything you expect is in here, so there's nothing special about that in that sense, but it really intrigues me for a few reasons. The Exalted Vales book, Guide to the Vales, is the one that I have fully and that I will be looking into in a bit, and it has basically one class that I think is really well designed, another subclass that I also think has a really cool mechanic. Now again, I had to like kind of like scroll through everything and pick and choose the things that I like about it, and I don't have like the full scope of this thing in my brain yet, if you know what I mean. So basically, Exalted Vales is, and there's one thing about the Guide to the Vales that I will be talking in a little bit, because yes, this is a sponsored video. Thank you so much for sponsoring this video, by the way. I like showing stuff to my viewers and then being able to like support this channel while I'm doing that. That's just crazy. That's amazing. Guide to the Vales, there is a thing about it that I like a little bit less, that could have done a little bit better in the future, that I will be pointing out when we take a look at the PDF. So basically, you can get Guide to the Vales, which is a book, and they just, after the success of their first book, they decided to start a series. So the Guide to the Vales is the first book that you can get. It's already out. You can get it through this Kickstarter for 47 USD. You can get a Game Master screen with that. There's cards. There's whatever this is. I think it's pin or stickers or something like that. I'm never like too interested in this kind of stuff. For me, the book is enough. Maybe some a card deck every now and then I can appreciate, but like all the other stuff, first of all, I don't use a Game Master screen, so I don't use it myself. So I'm just as a person who plays D&D without a Game Master screen, I'm just not that interested in Game Master screens, right? But if you use a Game Master screen, Game Master screens can be really awesome. I have a few really cool ones here. Yeah, just really quickly, Guide to the Vales, and then they are coming with like the new book, which is which has like this kind of stuff. There is wait, I have to like scroll here. There is new classes, new races, all that stuff, and then there's Favorable Skies, which is basically going to be like the first new book in what they are planning to be a series. And that is basically the setup of this campaign. They want to create a series for Exalted Vales. So let's just take a look first at Exalted Vales, Guide to the Vales, before we take a look at the preview PDF you can download for yourself, link in the description below. And here it is, Exalted Vales, Region Guide and Campaign. Now, with this beautiful cover of a half-butt naked angel hanging in the sky doing all kinds of weird lightning stuff, and it is a two-part book. Basically, the first part has the player options and the races and the classes and the feats and whatnot, and the other part is a shadow amongst them, a campaign. Now, I only had this book for about like 2 days, maybe maybe 3 days. So like I said in the beginning of the video, I didn't have the chance to like look fully into it. So if you're looking for like a main vibe and kind of an explanation of what the setting is, I advise you to click the link in the description below and check out the Kickstarter trailer. First of all, a lot of information in there. And then just read about it on Kickstarter itself. All I can do today for you is just kind of like point you towards a few things that I think are really cool. 2 classes basically that I think are really cool. First of all, their version of the Mecanist might be the best version of the Mecanist I've ever read. There's a lot of Mecanist-like classes out there. Some call them like Tinkerers, there's different names for them. Tales of the Valiant has a version of them, but this Mecanist for me just looks, feels, and I think plays incredibly cool. And then there's the fighter subclass, because I always look at the fighter subclass. If you know me, you know that I look at the fighter subclass. But first, the Mecanist. The Mecanist should be somewhere around this page. There we are, the Mecanist. Look at this pyro dude coming straight out of, I don't know, a steampunk setting with like, I don't know, it looks like a flamethrower with a gas thing on his back and all that stuff. So this is the Mecanist class. The way they do it, the way TheInkPlot, that's the creators' names, do it, and I really like the mechanics, not the mechanists, the mechanics behind this class. I really do. So the Mecanist is a 20 level full class, and it doesn't have a lot of class features going on, as you can see, but it has 2 things. First of all, electric arcs and arts. These are 2 different things. Let me just quickly look if you can still see this. I might just want to zoom in just a little tiny bit for you. Is this something that helps? It's probably something that helps. So the Mecanist, hit points 1d8, all that stuff, has a few things going on. First of all, they have a Mecanist weapon, which basically just is a steampunk version of any weapon. If you have an axe, you have a steampunk version of an axe. If you have bow and arrow, you have a steampunk version of like an arrow. You shoot lasers out of a bow and arrow or something like that. I don't know. You as a player really have the possibility to like fill that in for yourself. Of course, working with your DM, what works for your campaign setting and all that stuff, because it is kind of a it's kind of like a steampunk-ish class, so it needs to fit your campaign. It would perfectly fit in like the Midgard campaign setting, for example, but if you go like for the high fantasy kind of stuff, it might not fit. But if it fits, it's really cool. Now, other than that, this doesn't really do anything other than you need to be fighting with your Mecanist weapon in order to be able to use the abilities later in the class. So there is a first level ability, but there's other abilities you get at other levels that you can tie to your Mecanist weapon, but you can only do that when you're holding that weapon. So yeah, daily tinkering. Your mastery of the Mecanist arts allow you to make small, subtle modifications to every object, weapons, or otherwise improve their effectiveness. Using your tools for 10 minutes, you can modify an object. For 24 hours, the object gives its user a bonus to 1d4 to strength, dex, con, or wisdom, chosen when you modify the object. So basically, you get yourself, I don't know, a clock, and you modify that clock using your tinker tools, and then you give that clock to somebody, and they have a 1d4 to their wisdom rolls for 24 hours. Feels like a Mecanist. Feels like somebody who tinkers with stuff accidentally or not accidentally puts magical energy in that or whatever, and then that gets like a special power for X amount of time. Feels like an absolute mechanic. These abilities, sometimes when people do these classes, I think some of the abilities feel a bit generic. It's like, oh, you get this, you get this, you get this, and then they just tie an explanation to that. Here, I feel as if they were looking for, like, how can I, what do I want it to feel like, and then how can I tie rules against that, and instead of the other way around, right? Yeah, so heat. This is cool. Your talents allow you to exploit the energy emitted by your energy cells. This energy is represented by a number of heat points. You start with 2. You can spend these heat points to trigger various mechanic abilities. Certain mechanic arts can give you new abilities that make use of an influence or influence your heat. When you spend the heat point, it is no longer available until you ventilate it. That's cool. You must spend 3 hours taking care of your various instruments to ventilate a heat point. Again, feels like a Mecanist. It's all steampunk. You need to, like, I don't know, do stuff with it in order to recharge. It's the same with the mecanist weapon. If you don't take care of it for a few days, it just destroys itself. You need to, like, oil it. I don't know, put new batteries in it, new green juicy stuff in it, that kind of stuff. Really, really like that. When you hit a target with your mecanist weapon, you can spend 1 heat to activate your electric arc. If you do, you can choose another target up to 15 feet from the previous one and deal 1d8 lightning damage to it. So basically, let's say you are a dwarf with a hammer, but because you're a mechanic, you're a dwarf with a steampunk version of a hammer. So this hammer has, like, I don't know, pistons inside of it, I don't know, and you hit the ground, you hit the guy, boom, and you spent 1 heat point, and electricity comes out of the hammer, kind of like World of Warcraft type of stuff, right? And it just also hits another person. I love that. Also, mecanist arts. These are like the subclasses. They also have subclasses for this class. A few really cool ones, especially the Doctor is really cool because a lot of this reminds me of what's the game that has the pyro? It's not what I forgot the name of the game. Fuck. It has a pyro, it has a doctor, it has a sniper, it has a Team Fortress 2. This reminds me of a steampunk version of Team Fortress 2 as well, with like the doctor being all crazy and all that kind of stuff. So there's more here, more abilities. There's specialties, and then I think this is a really smart game design right here, because the thing is, if you have any weapon and you have a mechanist weapon that functions as any weapon, what do you do when you find a magical hammer, right? You find a magic hammer, now you can suddenly only use them. When you use that magical hammer, you cannot use your mechanist abilities, because that's not your mechanist weapon. So what they did is, you can dismantle a magic weapon when you build your mechanist weapon to incorporate the parts of a magic weapon that you dismantle. The mechanist weapon thus created is of the same type as the dismantled magic weapon and retains its magical abilities. Basically, if you find a magic weapon, you can rebuild your mechanist weapon and use the parts of that magic weapon, and then use that as your mechanist weapon. It's just like something that's needed, and they give that to you at level 5. Then there's a few subclasses I really like. I don't know why, but this just, it feels like, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. A dwarf with a freaking, I don't know, 2 pistols. They're both double barrel pistols, I guess. One of them is cocked even, so he's about to shoot you. I love this. I want to play this. I really, really, really want to play this. Freaking coolest dwarf ever, right? So yeah, gunman is one subclass, where you get like fighting styles, but you could also overload a shot. So if you shoot somebody with your pistol or whatever, or your bow and arrow from ranged attack, the person behind that person in a straight line also takes damage. There is lightning draw. When you're targeted by a ranged attack, you can spend your reaction to draw your mechanist weapon and make a ranged attack against a creature that is targeting you. So it's like at level 16, you're basically just standing there and somebody points a gun at you and you're quicker. You're like Lucky Luke, right? There's also a doctor. There's a doctor here who you can create like these vials with like a potion type thing, but what the potion does is random. It is enhancements. You can increase mass, enlarge tendons, induced nervous systems, and regeneration, which is absolutely cool to have. So you roll a d4 for that enhancement. I would have liked a d6 table, maybe even a d8 table, but d4 table, level not enough-ish. And then there is complications, because you can, at level 9, overdose your patient. And then it also gets like a downside to it. But yeah, makes it absolutely and really, really cool, right? Makes it like really roleplay, reminds me of the Doctor of Team Fortress again. Now, for the part that I like less about this book, and it is really important that I state this, the language used in this book feels like it's written by somebody who doesn't really understand the 5e language, and by that I know why it happened. It happened because the book was originally written in French. It's a Canadian company, if I'm not mistaken, and if I'm not mistaken, some people in Canada speak French, so they write in French, and then somebody translated it. But the person who translated it is a good translator because the translation is perfect, but it isn't 5e language. So some of the rules in here and some of the stuff in here, it is open for interpretation, and you need to work with your GM to like perfectly find out what the book tries to mean. It's not like a 5th edition at this point. It's written almost like a Magic the Gathering card. It's like there's only one way to interpret this sentence. Right? That's 5th edition language at this point. There's only one way to interpret it. The punctuation and everything is in such a way that there's only one way to do it, right? Every now and then something sneaks through and isn't really clear or anything like that. With this book, you need to have an open mind and try to understand what the people who wrote it try to convey to you, basically. That's a thing I just need to say about this. And something that got lost in translation is almost everything is when the patient uses the attack action, he can use the shove action for free. And that's because in French, I speak a little bit French because I'm from Belgium. It's hard to explain, but basically if you translate from French and you use this general French language and you translate that literally to English, you always get he. That's basically what happens. And that's what happened in this book. So it's just something you need to take into account when you buy this book for yourself. But without further ado, I want to quickly jump into the fighter subclass as well. And it is the Fighter Servant of the Abyss. Now, I don't necessarily like this for its how like its lore or its story or whatever. I like this because of the one of the mechanics that's tied to it: absorb and protect. Whenever you take damage, you store an energy charge of the type corresponding to the damage. It disappears after 1 minute. If the same damage source has multiple types, you only gain a single charge, but choose the type you want to absorb. You can activate the effects of the release energy list by expanding energy charges. You must spend 1 energy charge of the type corresponding or 2 energy charge of any type. Right? So if you spend 2, you spend a poison and a slashing type, you can choose the type you're spending, basically. That's the way I see it, right? You have an energy manipulation score which is equal to your proficiency bonus. So there is this energy, I really like it. You get hit, you take damage, right? As a fighter, you're on the front line, you're bound to take damage at some point. You're swinging your sword, you're doing that thing, taking extra attacks, taking damage, dishing out damage, and then you take damage, and somebody damages you with slashing and with a slashing attack. I'm just saying something, right? With a sword, slashing damage, bam. You take an energy charge. 1 slashing energy charge. You can then, within 1 minute in game, which is 10 rounds, you need to spend that. Otherwise, you lose it, right? You can then release that slashing damage. So you go to this release energy list right here, and you go to the slashing section, right? When you take damage from a spell or magical ability, reduce that damage by the amount of your energy manipulation, and the caster takes equivalent poison damage. I don't know why, but I really like this. I really like this as a mechanic. This is really, really original. This is proper game design. Like, there's a lot of stuff in D&D these days that's just a mechanic that already existed, but just kind of worded differently, titled differently, and some changes to it to make it feel fresh. But this really feels, I don't know, for me, I review countless 5th edition things. This feels really fresh. It feels really, really well done. It's simple, and it is like fighter things in my mind, at least. Fighter stuff needs to be simple. It needs to be quick and dirty, simple to understand. Like, bam, you get a charge. You just know the charge. Oh, I got this charge. I got this charge. I got this charge. And then at a certain point, you radiant damage. You have a radiant charge. When you move 20 feet or more in a straight line towards a target, you can spend your radiant charge, then hit it with an attack in the same turn. The target takes additional radiant damage as twice your energy manipulation. There is a weird translation thing going on here, but right. Additional radiant damage as twice your energy manipulation. So same thing. It's just cool extra stuff, kind of like maneuvers almost for you as a fighter to do. But in order to do those maneuvers, you need to take damage. So in order to earn those maneuvers almost, you need to be on the front line and you need to be taking damage. You need to want to take damage. So you create like this, maybe you create like this lower armor class but higher hit points fighter. Like you take a dwarf with extra hit points, whatever, but you don't wear heavy armor, you wear medium armor because you want to get hit every now and then, because you want these charges to do this extra stuff. I absolutely love this, and I wanted to point this out that the creators of these books, as far as I can tell at this point, I will be doing a deeper dive of these books later on my channel, but I can see they're really putting some thought in their worlds and in their way of thinking to create new and fresh ideas for 5th edition. Now this video is turning out to be much longer than I thought, so I'm gonna keep this pretty short. This is the free PDF you can download for yourself, link in the description below, through the Kickstarter that is probably live when you're watching this video. A free introductory scenario from TheInkPlot. Now TheInkPlot is, again, they are the creators of the Exalted Vales series of books, I should say now, because if this Kickstarter becomes a reality, it will become a series of books. And it's basically a 19 pages long, just an adventure that is actually pretty cool. It's an adventure where that will take your players into the city of Lausanne. And it starts in a pretty stereotypical way, but with a bang. They say it right here, arriving with a bang. And it is with a bang. And it is a stereotypical way of arriving in a city. Because as you can see right here, the players are in the third ship of a convoy of 4. They have been hired to escort blah 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 blah. Typical thing. You start your campaign. Your players have been traveling with each other for a week. You're sitting on a ship that is slowly getting into port, and you tell your players to introduce their characters to each other, because I bet they already like know each other's names, at least because they've been together on that ship for about a week. But like introduce your characters to each other. You have this thing. But then I really like the way they kind of change things around for this otherwise stereotypical way of starting a campaign. You get into this, suddenly a woman aboard the ship gets completely batshit crazy. I'm just gonna tell it in my own words, batshit crazy, and she starts saying all kinds of like doom scenarios, and she's warning everybody should get off the ship now, jump into the freaking water. And she's getting her things, and there's already one guard who jumps in the water, but other people know that if you arrive in the city, sometimes people just get a little bit crazy, so a lot of other sailors are like ignoring the woman, right? So it's up to the players, like, what do they do right here? And it's really important. You as a game master are like tick, 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 tick. I want to know what you do. Do you jump in the water, stay on the ship, right? Now, there's 2 scenarios. They could jump in the water or stay on the ship. Now, something the adventure didn't think about is 2 players could jump in the water and 2 players could stay on the ship, but that's kind of the same thing. Because if the players are like, yeah, oh shit, yeah, let's jump in the water. If we get wet, there's a port, we can get out of the port, we dry off, jump in the water. The moment they jump in the water, a gigantic stone hammer falls from the sky and destroys and completely obliterates the ship and, I don't know, kills pretty much everybody who's on board. And your players, like, you as a game master should really tell the story, like, if you didn't jump, you had probably died, right? Now, there's also the scenario that they stay on the ship. Same thing happens, but they just, like, the hammer splits the ship in 2. The players get knocked back, and they get, like, they almost drown, and they get saved, and they wake up somewhere in the city, and the adventure or the scenario kind of, like, starts, right? But I really like this. And this is like a really good example of the way I tell my stories. Like, if you choose like option A, I'm not gonna spend any time like thinking about what would have happened if they stayed on the ship. No, I'm gonna tell it as if the only way you could have survived this was getting in the freaking water. That's how you should tell it once they're in the water. This ship. So the coolest scenario, of course, is being in the water, or like one player stays on the ship and they get like knocked unconscious, all that stuff. Other than that, it's just a great introductory adventure with like some cool stat blocks, a really nice looking artwork, and yeah. something you can really play for yourself, or at least read through for yourself, because that might be the most important part. If you check out the Kickstarter trailer and you read this thing for yourself, you have a very, very, very good idea of what the creators are trying to do with the Exalted Vales and the series of books that are probably gonna come later. And for now, that is it. That is everything I can say right now about the Exalted Vales. I want to take a much deeper dive into these books, into at least the first book and the book that is coming through the Kickstarter. I want to get my hands on a few physical copies, browse through them, and see if I want to do a full review on them on my channel, because I think the quality is really there, and I'm intrigued to know more about it. Until next video, bye bye.